Hey guys, it's Chris. From wild geese saving an empire to chimps killing a king, here are 9 animals that changed the world. Number 9, the space race. The space race was one of the most important events in human history. Not only did it help get man into space and up to the moon, but it was a political event that was meant to show whether the United States or the USSR was better equipped to progress the future of humanity. Sputnik 1 was the first artificial Earth satellite to be launched into space, and its brother, Sputnik 2, was the first craft to ever put an animal in space. That animal was a dog named Laika. The Soviet Union made history with the launch, making Laika the first life form in Earth's history to make it into space on a craft. And this venture would help prove that people could survive the harsh environments of space with the proper equipment. Weirdly, Laika was a stray before being picked up by the Soviet Union. She was one of many dogs trained for the mission and then selected for the assignment. However, the mission as a whole wasn't a full success. Sadly, Laika died mere hours after launch because the craft wasn't fully prepared for the launch into space. The craft burned up upon re-entry, but thanks to Laika, we were able to learn much more about rockets and how to support life in space. With this data, 2 more dogs, Belka and Strelka, were launched into space in 1960, nearly 2 years after Sputnik 2, and they survived entry into space and even circling the Earth. Because of those 3 dogs, the Soviet Union launched human Yuri Gagarin into space in 1961, and 8 years later, man landed on the moon. Number 8, the geese who saved Rome. The Roman Empire was a mighty force in history, but during one of its lowest moments, surprisingly, a bunch of geese saved them from ruin. If you can believe it, in the 4th century BC, the Roman Empire had been suffering a series of defeats at the hands of the Gauls. The Gauls were fierce warriors, and though they had smaller numbers, they had more experience than many of the Roman armies, and thus they had the upper hand. After some failed negotiations, the Gauls had one goal: to go and conquer Rome proper, as in the city of Rome. They sent messages even to the cities that were in their path and promised not to harm any of them if they let them go through. None of them resisted, and the Gauls marched right towards Rome. The early battles for the city went in favor of the Gauls, but a key defeat near the wall drove the Gauls back. They had to rethink their plan. Then one day, a political backfire on the count of the Romans involving a messenger revealed a hidden passage up the walls of the city. The Gauls waited until the dead of night and then started to climb the walls. The Romans didn't hear them. The guard dogs they had trained also didn't hear them, but a bunch of geese did. Geese were the prized animals of the goddess Juno, and thus they were kept in the city in her honor. For whatever reason, the geese heard the Gauls coming and honked up a storm, which alerted a guard to the situation. This alert allowed the Romans to fight back and make sure that the Gauls didn't invade the city. This soon led to the Gauls' defeat at the hands of the Romans, and all because of the geese that let them know something was very wrong. Number 7, Dolly the sheep. Dolly the sheep is the first official cloned animal in the history of the world to have reached adulthood. This proved that not only cloning could be done, but that the subject could survive long after the process was complete. Dolly herself was born from a single cell taken from a female sheep's mammary glands. This cell was then put into another female sheep, where Dolly was later born. At the time, no one thought that this type of birth was possible, making the results all the more astounding. Ian Wilmot and his fellow scientists at the Roslin Institute in Midlothian, Scotland, were praised for what they had done. It was a scientific achievement. But the birth of Dolly the sheep caused a lot of controversy as well. The concept of cloning life had been tested before, but was never this successful. And now that it had been done, a lot of questions had to be asked, including whether such projects should be allowed to continue. As for Dolly herself, she lived to be 7 years old before dying of lung cancer in 2003. Furthermore, she gave birth to 6 lambs, proving that she was indeed a successful recreation of a life with no true side effects. Number 6, the chimps that killed the king. World War I saw many bloody conflicts, but even after the Treaty of Versailles was signed, more battles came. This includes in 1919 when Greece as a nation went after Turkish soil and occupied it in their name. Then they went and had many successful campaigns in the area that would lead to even more land gotten by Greece. The ruler at the time was King Alexander, the son of a formerly deposed king, and he had the Greeks on the path to victory until a group of primates came and attacked him. This led to him dying from sepsis due to a bite on the hand. After his death, his father, Constantine I, took charge and actually went on a very different path than his son. His political ideas were very different, including supporting the Germans who helped start World War I. These changes to the nation led to them actually losing all the lands that King Alexander had gotten for them. So if it wasn't for those primates, the nation of Greece could be much larger than it is right now. And history may have been quite different. Number 5. Snowball and her DNA. The use of DNA to solve crimes was a major breakthrough for law enforcement and the justice system. However, at one time, it was very limited in not only what could be done, but who could be tested. And one thing that no one wanted to do was be the first to try and use pet DNA to help solve a crime. In 1994 in Canada, a murder took place of a woman, and while Canadian mounted police were able to determine that the blood at the scene was the victim's, there was a hair on her that was out of place. A white cat hair. It was found out that the woman's husband had a white cat named Snowball. But again, at the time, testing animals for DNA evidence just wasn't done. A lot of negotiations and calls had to take place, and a large sample size of cats were brought in to confirm the results and help prove that all cats have individualized DNA. But in the end, the hair was proven to be Snowball's. Due to this, the husband was arrested for murder. DNA science took a huge step forward, and the National Feline Genetic Database was established. And of course, it set the precedent, allowing using animal DNA to help solve crimes. So cool. Number 4. CHER army. During World War I, communications on the battlefield were very hard to deliver by person. So the various armies of the world employed carrier pigeons and had them deliver messages via small canisters to people who needed to read them. One of the most famous carrier pigeons of all time was called CHER army, which is French for dear friend. In 1918, there was a group of US soldiers known as the Lost Battalion that was under fire from all sides. They were called that because they were unable to relay their location to their commanders. Due to this, they were surrounded by German soldiers, and to top it off, they were getting hit with artillery from their own country, all because they couldn't get their location out. They put all their hopes on CHER army to deliver a message to the headquarters and get them out of the situation. Upon flying away, CHER army was hit, but the bird kept flying. The US got the location of the men and were able to send them help, thus allowing victory on that day. What a hero, CHER army. Number 3. The Black Plague Rats. In terms of epidemics that nearly killed the world as we know it, the Black Plague stands as one of, if not the, most deadly events in human history. 1/3 of Europe's entire population was said to have perished from this event. And the reason that this disease spread so much was that it had help getting around, because of the rats. Rats are natural-born carriers of diseases, which is why they're mostly despised in the eyes of the world. Just as bad in this case, rats are very skilled at breeding and getting to just about anywhere in the world. Ships and all kinds of transport unintentionally carried rats all over, allowing the spread of disease or passing it on to the fleas who then jumped onto the humans. Ugh. Number 2. Balto. The legend of Balto is one that's been exaggerated a little because of the beloved animated film made in his honor. But the truth is, the beginning and ending of that film is real. Balto was a dog who saved an entire town from disease by making sure that he, his sled team, and their human musher got the medicine needed to cure the town of diphtheria. One of the ironies of the situation was that Balto and the sled dogs almost weren't needed, but because of a harsh winter storm in Alaska, no train could get in. Nor could their only plane fly out because of it not being able to. The dogs were their only hope, and the conditions of it, the harsh winds, the negative 40-degree temperatures, pushed the dog team to their limits. In a 6-day journey, they not only got the medicine, they came back and delivered it intact. But why is Balto himself so famous? It's honestly because he was called an inferior dog and was considered weak. No one expected much from him, and because of the blizzard, the human driver got lost. but it was BALTO who understood the path, and BALTO who led them all home. In his honor, a race was made called the Iditarod, a race from Anchorage to Nome, where the disease was cured. And BALTO himself has a statue dedicated to him and all the sled dogs who helped save Nome. Number 1. Bumblebees. Not a singular animal, but rather a whole species. Bumblebees are vital to the survival of Earth as a whole. While they may seem like annoyances to humans, bumblebees are actually the ones who help ensure that most plant life on Earth lives on. This is because bumblebees are pollinators, and are in fact the most diverse pollinators in the world. When a flower is pollinated, it receives pollen from another source, and this in turn allows the plant to grow and thrive. Bees go from plant to plant to get the nectar that it needs to make honey back at the home hive. To that end, they'll go to virtually any flower that has nectar and pollinate it, which not only gives it honey, but ensures that many plants grow. Because of this, bees like this are valued by scientists, and when certain types of bumblebees went missing from their habitats, they knew they needed to investigate. It's been said that if the bumblebee population were to go extinct, humans would soon follow, because we ourselves would not be able to pollinate the plants like bees do, and thus many plants and crops would die out, which would help start a chain of events that would lead to the end of the human race. Well, thanks for watching, guys. What did you think of these incredible animals that changed the world? Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.